grades are due.
God.
So
Oh, so this is our fourth
I know,
playthrough.
Andy. Yeah.
I feel ya. And
So close.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm taking notes, so
All right, we're alive, everyone.
Yes.
Okay.
Patrick told me that, Micah. Can't wait.
I know.
You ready?
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 Hang on, Patrick. Let's record.
Yep.
Are you gonna
I'll
edit
get that
this?
too. Yeah, I'll edit this one.
1 second.
Got it. I'm gonna get the YouTube pulled up, and then I think we're ready to rock. Get it on.
Get it on.
So we have a 2-minute timer, right? So if everyone can remember that, to let everyone else talk. Don't talk over anybody else, because I think this is the most people we've had on the show. Maybe.
That's why I keep being so insistent about the timer. It's
Yeah.
just we just gotta.
And we need to shout out our producers at the end. Reminder of that.
Poop vein with such as our calling in the chat. All right, we're good. Yeah, Jamie,
Where
I got
do you-
the patrons all set.
Do you guys see the chat from inside here, or you have to open up YouTube?
No, I go
on
to
a new-
YouTube and mute
YouTube.
it.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey,
Okay,
we're at
you ready?
6.41 thousand subscribers. That's we were at 6.4 this morning.
Yeah, I put out in, I don't know if it's, I think it might have been Reddit, that we're going to do a contest. The more subscribers we get, we're going to give away some cool shit. So whatever.
Nice.
You ready?
Yeah.
Welcome to Perfect Organism, the Alien Saga podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Prater, and I'm joined by my co-hosts.
Patrick Green.
Perry Chicos.
Andy Geek Girl.
Holden Wilhoit.
Micah Green.
And introducing officially for the first time, two new members of our team, Mario Benvenuto, whom you know well, and Kyle June, who is making his Perfect Organism debut tonight. Welcome, guys.
Welcome to the show, guys.
Welcome.
What is going on, guys?
Hey, what's up?
This is Kyle's first time on the show. Mario has been on the show before a couple of times, maybe 3 times, something like that.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yes. So this is going to be a really exciting conversation. Before we get into that, I'm going to hand it off to Patrick.
Yeah, let's do some patrons. We got Lorna Folan, Peter Hoskin, Adrian Johnson, McLegendface, Hudson's Extra Life, Sky Errand, and Jordan. And we have lots of people who have upgraded to the producer tier, and we will be reading all of those names at the end. I got to say, the producer tier has blown up in this last couple of weeks, and it's been so fun. We have a separate chat that is for like producers only, and the whole Perfect Organism team is in it, as well as all the producers. And there's 30, or maybe more than that at this point, producers. So that chat is like hopping, and it's very fun and very video game centric, but we also talk about other things as well. So if you want to join that and you want to see what all that's about, go to perfectorganism.com/support or just search for us on Patreon, and we'd love to have you. There's a lot of other things too. Of course, we just did our first rehearsal for our audio drama, which is coming out in April. And we recorded that for the producers, and they got to see it, and they've been providing some really great feedback on it, which is really fun. So if you want to see that and maybe have a speaking part in it and also get a lot more kind of exclusive access to things, please go ahead and join our producer level on Patreon. And if you don't join the producer level, you're still going to get lots of cool new shows. We have, in addition to Frame Rate, we have a Game Rate, which we're thinking about doing a couple installments of. And Holden and I were even talking about potentially a Page Rate idea where we do kind of almost like a book club every once in a while. So, we'll give like patrons a month to read something, and then we can kind of talk about it with them. I think that'd be a lot of fun. So if you want to get in on that, please join Patreon. And that is any tier level. You don't have to be, over $12 to do that stuff. And we'd love to have you. And I guess kind of before we get rolling tonight, Mario, we've had you on enough at this point. I think we kind of get your story. But Kyle, we
Shut
don't
up, Mario.
know. Yeah, Mario, you go back to Jersey.
Wait,
Didn't even start. He's so everyone's so mean.
Yeah, you can take it. But Kyle, you have not been on PO before. You and I, of course, have been really good friends for a long time. But
Sure.
I think people would love to hear your alien story. How'd you get into it?
All right. So I met a couple of you obviously at the what is it called? The Romulus get together at premiere. And I remember I was talking to Patrick about it, and I remember Jamie, when I told you the story, you looked at me like, how did this happen? Like, when I had this experience. So I was about 5.5 years old, I think. And my mom or aunt, one of the other, were like, oh, you probably would like Alien. And I'm like, what, really? Like, okay, like I didn't know what this was. In hindsight, like they were kind of really cool for recommending this to me. So at Blockbuster, I got my aunt went, I think, and got me the VHS trilogy of like when it had like the very minimalistic, like negative space black backgrounds of it, which is pretty much all of the things that I post on the social media. But that's all like realizing it's derivative of that. But to make a long story short, I got into Alien when I was about 5. I'm now 30 years later. I'm still here, so like loving this obviously. And in the first day of watching Alien, I got to take the tape, watch Alien, take the tape out, and then put in Aliens consecutively. Like I spent like 4.5 hours of my life at 5.5 years old. I wasn't scared at all of them. Like my mom's like, "Oh, you're gonna be terrified." Aliens. Like, no, this is sick. Like like I've never been afraid of the xenomorph. I think there is like I'm parts of the experience. I think isolation actually engenders that more than anything for me. I then like didn't watch Alien 3, I think for like another like maybe a week, 2 weeks, and then was depressed at like 5.5 years old, like walking around my grandma's living room being like, oh, it's life without Ripley now. And it was like ridiculous, right? But that movie came around profoundly to me in my teens. There was inklings, and then as I got older too, I was like, this movie actually has a lot of profound merit, and then this show more or less underscored that. And my girlfriend thinks now it's like, oh, it's your favorite one. I'm like, I don't know, maybe it is. I don't know. But anyway, it doesn't matter.
Join the club.
Yeah, it's a weird mix. I love them all, which is a cop out for the first three at least. But I would say my alien journey really was though seeing the first two consecutively, which was almost like idealized. Like I know people saw Aliens first or they watched the Syndicator. Like nope, I watched. It wasn't director's cut, but it was like two theatrical cuts consecutively back to back. So it's kind of insane, looking at how like profound that could be in hindsight, right? So yeah, and here I am now, and those films especially informed so much unconsciously of the aesthetics that I value. And I love Geiger's art, but I wasn't like obsessed with that. But just atmospherically, I think there's been and color grading and all those things I've been fascinated by, and I could attribute those first three films to that for sure. So thank you for having me.
Oh, we love it. And a quick shout out. Kyle's an amazing musician, and Kyle is co-composing the score to our audio drama with me. And if you, not to keep plugging Patreon every 10 seconds, but if you want to join the producer tier, you get to hear a lot of the music as we're making it. And that Jamie and Kyle and I were talking like late last night about all of these ideas we're having. It's going to be a very audio intensive experience, and the music's going to play a big role in that. So anyway, Jamie,
it's going to play a big role, but I will say this, probably for the first time, every time Patrick scores something for a project that we do, it's always amazing. I mean, it's always amazing. But this time, I think it's going to be a character in the way the music has not been a character in the show before, because it deals with this story deals with a lot of body horror, and that's going to iterate itself in the music. And I cannot fucking wait.
Oh yeah.
So Jamie, what are we talking about tonight? We're talking about Romulus.
Yes, tonight we are talking about sort of what's going on with Alien Romulus, and this was prompted by a couple of discussions in terms of who do we want to direct the next Alien film. But there's also a lot of questions. Romulus 2 was supposed to go in front of cameras early this year. We've heard nothing. People we know in the industry we've spoken to, they've heard nothing. We don't know who's directing it, but it invites a lot of speculation. Where could the story go? Where should the story go? Will it be the same story now that they're having a new director, even though Fede had said, we wrote the script for the next film just so that they don't change it like they did with Alien 3. They don't kill off Rain and Andy like they did with Newton Hicks. So I think it's going to be an interesting conversation, and there's definitely a lot to say. Or not.
I can get it rolling. So this the genesis of this was kind of a few different places. And one of them, for me at least, was from a post that I did to our subreddit like 3 weeks ago, where I asked people for their opinions about where the story should go. And I was shocked personally at how little support there was for continuing Rain and Andy's narrative. I thought that was like a slam dunk personally, especially obviously Andy. But I was kind of surprised that people were like, oh, we need a clean slate. We need to kind of start from the beginning again. Whereas I think a year ago, everybody was like, oh, we have to have, we have to see where they go next. What's interesting is that that's happening at the same time as we no longer have a director attached to it. And it's making me wonder if that has some correlation. Like if suddenly this apple cart's been so upset by having the director leave that people are kind of like, let's just start again and try something else. I will say, I personally would love to see this story continue. And my quick thought on that is I think Jackson Starr is such a clear highlight from the first film. And I think it comes up often as something people really loved and gravitated towards. And I think it'd be really cool to see Rain and Andy perhaps get sidetracked on the way to Ivaga and end up on a planet kind of similar to the one that they were fleeing from, where Jackson Star was, where it's under the screw of the company and it's being worked to the bone and the people are, dying. And maybe that this is a place where Rain can kind of come to her own as a character and be kind of an agitator against the company who took everything from her. And maybe she can be almost like, kind of foment some like rage and uprising and maybe, take the company down in a different way than just fighting aliens.
Yeah, I agree. I think I know a lot of talk is about cleaning the slate, but I feel like the ones that work the best are the ones where we get to know a character for, a longer period of time. So obviously Ripley. Um, I think going back to that is doing something new now because even after Prometheus into Covenant, they cleaned the slate, except for David and Walter. But beyond that, it's like, let's just kill everybody off and start new. I feel like they've done that so many times. I would love a continuation where we can invest even more emotional stakes in those characters. I think they pretty much hit it out of the park with Andy and Rain in terms of the emotional. They were the height of that. Um, I want to be invested in the characters, and then I feel like that will heighten the terror. If we care about them and we don't want them to die, we're going to be scared for them. And so, whether that's in alien form and xeno form, whether that's both with the company, I really do think this is a great chance to expand Weyland-Yutani, maybe take us back to Jackson Star or tell us more about what they went through, like you said. Um, I think this story still has so much potential to be great. And I think if they focus on what the things that made Romulus great and continue with that, I think that's where I would ultimately like it to go. We got the fan service, we got the references. Now let's stay with them and move forward and make the stake. We need stakes. We need to care about these characters and not want to see them die. Otherwise, we're not going to talk about it for months, years later. We're going to enjoy it at the time, and then that's it. That's at least how really.
Yeah, I'll go for it, Holden.
I've been thinking about this question pretty hard for the last few days. And the more that I think about it, the more I'm realizing that I actually kind of like the idea of this direction moving towards David and Covenant 2, and sort of combining those two things together, because there was a very clear and very obvious reference to Prometheus in Romulus. It's very clear to me, at least, that they want those two things to exist in the same universe, and the same timeline. So it would make sense for them to move in that direction. I wouldn't be mad if Daniels and Tennessee got alien 3'd and died in cryopods or something, because I can't really see Danny McBride or Catherine Watterson returning. But I think it would be interesting for it to move in that direction, and maybe David manipulates Rain and Andy into using the pathogen as a weapon against Weyland-Yutani, and we get to see them get a little bit of vengeance through that avenue. But obviously there would be ramifications of its own if they move in that direction, and I don't know. The more that I think about it, the more I like that direction. I was initially kind of apprehensive about it, but I feel like if Fede had ended up directing Romulus 2, my fear is that it would have ended up going towards a Aliens 2 type direction, sort of like how Romulus mirrored Alien in a lot of ways. My fear is that Romulus 2 would have mirrored Aliens in a lot of ways, and it would have kept that formula going. So I don't know. I'm intrigued to see where it goes. I'm open-minded to it as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna add, like, well, most of the things I'm saying are obviously speculative, but I don't know exactly in this personally. I just don't know if the studio knows exactly what they want to do with it. I mean, I think it's telling to see that there isn't an official director yet. I'd love Fede to be involved. I really enjoyed Fede, like especially when we chatted with him, just hearing everything that he had to say about the experience and what he put into it. I think he'd be a great like consultant to whoever they do bring in to direct it. Uh, and if that is, somebody completely new or that's in the horror genre space, like an A24 director or something to that effect, that I don't know. Like I think that would be cool. I don't think we're gonna get anybody big like, people. I don't know. Some people, oh, it'd be cool if like Christopher Nolan directed a Alien movie or like whatever what have you, Ari Aster or like to it. But anyway, I think Fede developed a really great story in Romulus, the characters to everything you guys have said. I think it would be great to see them take that into a second part, but I also think fortunately, unfortunately, this universe now with the folks and the audience watching it, we're tied to Predator a little bit. I mean that in the best way possible, but I'm kind of Predator seems to be leading the IP as far as like what's happening. Like a second movie's already come out. They did the Hulu, The Killer of Killers. Prey was really great. Um, and now there doesn't seem to be the same type of driving force after Alien Earth finished. So that's where my theory is coming into play that like the studio doesn't really know what to do with it. And I wouldn't be surprised if Alien or Romulus 2 is taken a bit differently and we don't get a furthering on of Rain and those characters. I would be sad, but it's just I'm keeping my expectations low with that.
Yeah, I mean, I echo everyone's sentiments. I really do want to see what happens with Rain and Andy, especially since I agree, Andy, that the stakes would be higher if we had someone that we already know in play who has to survive. And something that I really hope to see, which I think might be a little bit too much to ask, especially since we kind of feel a bit directionless, no pun intended, since we don't have a director. I feel like it would be mature to try to continue the story and also let it breathe a little bit, to not jump right into a huge disaster, a la, what happens kind of with the crashing and the killing off of Newt and Hicks. It would be neat to see how Rain and Andy have to deal with the fallout of all of the decisions that they made. Especially since Andy had different authority with the way you chip, and he became this almost this terror to everybody, including Rain. I would love to see like the emotional fallout, like where Rain has to deal with how horrible that was for that moment to have lost her brother to the company essentially. And just to see her kind of she's she's forced to survive by action upon action upon action, and she's kind of forced similar to Ripley in the beginning, she's forced to be the hero because she has no other choice. I would like to see her sit with what happened with her, how she lost all of her friends and the fallout from that and what she decides to do with her life. I hope to see her reach her destination, but it would be interesting to see who Rain becomes after Romulus and how she interacts with the world and how she interacts with her brother and how the events of Romulus affected and changes her as a character.
Micah, I'll jump, like piggyback off this. So I was talking about this the other day and trying to figure out like what I wanted to say about it, obviously. And uh, for this, if we're gonna continue the story of Rain and Andy, which might be the case or might not, but let's go with the assumption that it's going to happen. I'm kind of, and I think we all are to some extent. Like I'm not looking. Well, let me try to figure out what I'm saying. I'm kind of sick of the hero archetype in every single thing we see with this IP. Ripley was the best at it and did everything that, like exemplifies all of those great qualities. We kind of seen it a little bit in all the characters, but like this vague shadow. And I think that since then, but we kind of see what's her name? Why is her name fleeting for me in Prometheus off the top of my head? I can't think of it.
Shaw, Elizabeth
Shaw.
Shaw.
Thank you. Yeah, like she was becoming her own, and then she was killed off. But anyway, I think, Micah, you saying like what has happened to this emotional fault, this emotional damage of Rain. I was thinking about this, saying that I think we need to see a character, whether it's Andy or her, kind of go through this like moral degradation, like this slow decline where we don't know if we actually like the character. We're rooting for them, but we don't know if we align with all their choices they're making. And like a modern pop culture, it's like tried and true. It's like almost contrived at this point to say, but like Breaking Bad is the most popular one you could think of probably that's done that. But a lot of that's based off of Shakespearean tragedy. You read Hamlet, you read Macbeth, and you don't know if you like these people, and you hate Macbeth by the end of the play because he's an awful person. But what I'm saying is, if we see this moral decline, which we do see in Alien 3, we do see that, but it's more nihilistic in her sense. She's not trying to be a bad person. But like, what happens if a character actually is? I don't think they're going to do this because of just the nature of how Hollywood is. But I do think we see glimpses of that with Andy. Like, well, is this dude actually great? Is he actually programmed to be good? And the thing is, like, I think like if we see some kind of more morally gray area, it will call into question a lot of things of how we perceive protagonists or in general versus like everyone's a hero all the time, everyone's always the same thing over and over again we're getting. And now a thing that came up with that was just that there's a required arc to do something like that. It's like not going to come overnight, right? So it's just going to be a trilogy with Andy and Rain, and then by the third one you're like you don't even know how you feel about these characters. I don't know, but that was just one thing, one of the few things I was thinking, but I don't know if that's plausible in this day and age, with how pop culture works. So yeah.
Yeah, I'd love that. That would be so cool. And Hamlet is a whiny bitch.
Completely. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm kind of in the same boat as you, Kyle. I'm kind of tired of the hero like archetype, but at the same time, Andy makes some good points about it would be nice to see another character make it to the like another movie so you can kind of like continue that story and appreciate those characters because Aliens makes Ripley better. Going back and watching Alien kind of makes that character so much better just because you get those two movies to kind of dish out those two that same character. But at the same time, just watching Romulus over the weekend, I don't know how you bring Rain and Andy into another story where you don't continue their like more of that hero type where it's like Rain and Andy versus the Xenomorph or versus Weyland-Yutani. And that's not exactly the movie I would want to see going forward, but I feel like it's the movie we would get, and that's what I struggle with. So it's like, and even at the end of Romulus, Rourke had said before the Corbellan got she took it off of autopilot that he had notified the company that they had the compound and were heading back to Jackson Star before they turned around. So Weyland-Yutani is already notified, so I'm interested if they come in swoop them, grab them, and take them somewhere, or if they take over Yavaga. So by the time they land, they have that all set up as a lab and grab them. I would like to see a fully function like Weyland-Yutani lab that does not get overrun and like security is actually tight for one time instead of just a we had them and then the aliens ran amok and we had to desert and it's just a total wasteland. So there's a couple different ways the story can go. I would like it to take a darker turn, and if they can make Rain and Andy into a darker type of story that's not just a hero of them versus the alien or Weyland-Yutani, then I think I would be on board.
I would agree with you. Number one, if they don't continue Rain and Andy's story, I will be upset. Just because to everyone's point, they keep doing this with Shaw, with Daniels. Even though Daniels wasn't as a great character, she could have been. But we will never know because they'll probably never finish that trilogy. There's so much there that they could do, and I think that there's a way to continue Rain and Andy's story and have them become fuller characters without having them become Ripley, without having Andy or Andy become oh my God, Bishop. There's so many things that they could do to make this story interesting. And honestly, and I've mentioned this before, but the idea that the company does come in and say they meet them at some rendezvous point, and maybe somehow the company has rerouted the Corbellan, and the Corbellan is taken down to another planet, and they are rounded up and say, "What the fuck are you doing? This is not your property. Who are you?" And there are ramifications for the theft, essentially, because what they did is they went to that company and they went to the space station and they stole that shit. And they stole high security level goo or whatever that shit is. That's, and I think that there should be ramifications, and we haven't really seen ramifications before. Now, in a specific way, in terms of the company having retribution for people who have stolen from them. We've seen Ripley have some emotional consequences. We've seen Ripley be questioned by the company, like, what were you doing? Where were you going? Why did you make this decision? And that was interesting, but I think it would be great to take this deeper. And to points everybody else is making, I do not want this to become Aliens at all. I don't want to see colonial marines in this. I don't want them to go to a deserted colony. I would love it if they actually did something different, but also pivoting back a little bit to its roots and taking them to a planet that doesn't look like Earth, a la Covenant. I think that's one of the weaker elements of Covenant, is that it looked so much like Earth. Take them to something that's a little bit more scary, a little bit closer to LV-426, but different, where there is real unknown. They have they have the possibility and the canvas to make a film that submerges us or into the unknown and take us to a place where we're not predicting, oh, this is going to happen next. Because at this point with the series, we're just predicting what happens next. And I think the beauty of Rain and Andy is their connection. And I think that's, for me, Rain's strongest character parts are her connection to Andy, not when she becomes Ripley at the end of Romulus, because I think that's when she becomes weak, is she's just an avatar for Ripley doing everything. We've talked about this before, note for note, what Ripley had done. And I think Fede Alvarez really set up Romulus in a way where we are presented with the little guy, the blue-collared people, pitted against the company. And I think we could push that further and do that more and really experience something that we haven't experienced before. And I honestly love the idea that, let's just say they get to a planet that they think is Yavaga, but it's not Yavaga. And there is the Covenant on that ship that had crash landed or something, and David is like David is in pieces, and Tennessee and Daniels are still in cryo. That presents a really, really interesting opportunity to bring these characters back, to finish that story, and to tell a really dark, scary story that we haven't seen before. And I think the series is at an interesting place because, number one, Alien is still more successful than Predator. Even I don't know if Predator is so much leading its IP, just based off box office revenues. Badlands still did not do the kind of money that Romulus did. It didn't. It didn't make the. It didn't make the kind of return on the ROI that Romulus made. Romulus is still leading, and so is Alien Earth for all intents and purposes. Alien Earth is still looked upon as very successful. It's leading the way. I think Alien is still pretty in charge of their IP. I just think that where the story goes is up in the air, and if they don't bring Andy and Rain back, I'll be pissed that they're doing this again. And I also think the optics look bad that they keep doing this to the women. They not only killed Shaw off, they maimed and dissected her, and then essentially stopped Daniel's storyline. If they do this to Rain, it's just going to look shitty. And again, I have issues with how women are represented in horror films, and I think it's just a bad look. So we'll see.
I mean, I think there's a lot of factors going into this. I think one of them is the precedent that's been set now for decades and decades with Alien, where it's like constantly a fresh slate. Like we had 3 super different original trilogy films and then a 4th movie that was just completely out of left field. And then it's like, well, we're going to try something new with Prometheus. And then let's try something that's kind of the same, but kind of new with Covenant. It's like over and over again, like, let's just try this out. Let's try this out. Let's try this out. And then, we get attached to characters and they get kind of taken away from us. We get attached to like myths and ways of operating with things like the black goo, and then that gets kind of taken away, or it gets kind of put aside, or it gets kind of sidelined in Romulus but still there. I just think it's just we become so accustomed to the idea that this is not like a continuous story. And then you have Alien Earth, which is like the least continuous of anything that's ever come out in Alien. And again, it just sort of shows like we're just always kind of restarting and trying different things out and calling it the same universe, because nominally it is, and giving it a timeline. But like at the end of the day, like it doesn't feel like it's really existing in the same one. I don't want it to feel like the MCU where everything fits together, but I do want, if we're going to have like a filmic universe existing as a semi-independent thing from this television universe, which I do think it kind of has to be its own sort of separate thing if Alien Earth is going to continue the way it is, which I hope it does. I think it needs to have some kind of an identity to it, like just some kind of a continuity, Another factor at play here is it's definitely continuing Rain and Andy's story. Like I don't think that this is a question. When Fede left, he made it very public and very clear that the story had already been submitted for it. People at the studio have confirmed that, like that is at least as of Fede leaving where the story was. So if 20th Century decides to not bring them back again, it's going to look like extra bad, because it's going to be like, we got rid of Fede and we got rid of these characters that he'd already finished, and we got rid of a whole new continuity that people turned out in droves to see it, that made 4.5 times its budget back. It's just going to look awful. So I think it's safe to say that if nothing else, we're going to get the continuation of that narrative, right? Kyle, I love that idea about having a protagonist that's not even an anti-hero, that's just struggling. I mean, I go back all the time to The Last of Us Part 2, the game, not the second season television show, which I think is one of the best, exercises in storytelling I have ever seen in my entire life. And that is a game where, you spend the whole first game falling deeply in love with Ellie as a character, feeling protective of her, feeling like she is like the best hope for humanity, and not just because she's special, but because she's a wonderful kid, and we feel like we would do anything for her, and we become so, we just love this little girl so much. And then the whole second game is this exercise in how long are you still going to love her for, like seeing her continuously do things that are very uncomfortable, and very much seeing things through other characters' eyes, and seeing what she's doing and how it impacts people differently, and feeling very uncomfortable with it. I mean, that is a delicious and difficult space to be in. And we leave that game feeling very conflicted about this now young woman who we have grown to love, and feeling like maybe we have been putting our faith in the wrong person this whole time. It's very rare, to Kyle's point, that movies do that. I think it's really hard to pin a narrative on it. I also think because of who we have so far with Rain, if she is indeed going to be the protagonist of this next movie, it'd be kind of hard to like buy that, because she seems like a good person, quote unquote. She seems pretty like straightforward. But who knows? I mean, there's definitely ways to write that story where we do get challenged. But I think that at the end of the day, not only are women often mistreated in horror films, but we just always have a central female character in these movies, and so stuff always happens to the central characters in these movies, and it's always women. So like, and that coupled with the fact that we're always restarting these things every 2 or 3 movies means that like word is always killing women off, or we're never seeing them again, or we're never hearing from them again. And I just think that not only illuminates gender issues, it also just illuminates narrative problems. Like have some continuity, like allow us to get to know people for a little bit. Last thing I'll say quick is, don't forget Covenant takes place in 2104, I think. And Romulus takes place in like 2042, right? So those are very different timelines. So I know, Jamie, you're mentioning that they could be in hypersleep. Like that's definitely one way to do it. But if like this ship, the Covenant, has just been adrift for decades, and David has just been experimenting, it'd be pretty cool to see where that goes. And I have to say, according to our chat, which is going nuts right now, we got 30 people in there almost. There's a lot of people would love to see that. So hey, maybe a Covenant's 10-year anniversary is coming up. Maybe it's time we get some a little bit of that. Just don't make it go directly into the first film, because nobody wants David to be the actual progenitor of the xenomorph XX121. Just don't do that. And I think it could work.
Yeah, I will say, I think every time we've posted this on social media, a ton of fans like want to see the Covenant Prometheus story like tied up, which is just really interesting to hear. Um, Based off, I guess, just like how things have gone and Ridley Scott, and I think especially the characters. Although I mean, like bringing Danny McBride back in an Alien film, I think would be hilarious. But if he's written well. So yeah, I mean, to your point, Patrick, it'd be very interesting. It'd be interesting to see if we do ever at some point end up getting that, but I doubt it. Romulus was obviously very successful, and I think that is where with Fede and just like the machine that's been built already and that's slowly moving with that, I think that's where it's gonna go, unless like Ridley Scott, guns blazing before he dies, like is like, or make this movie, and gets the DP back from Gladiator 2 to shoot it. That would be great. That was a joke. But anyway, yeah, I'll just leave it there. Someone else take it away.
I wanted to comment back to Kyle's um, statement about not having a clear-cut hero, and I think there really is a way you can do that with these two characters. Given that Andy is a synthetic, you can do it one of two ways, where one of them is changing because of what they went through, and their relationship changes, and maybe it forces them into moral dilemmas. Either, Andy has been like forever changed because of his programming or something, and there's a rift of some kind between them, where they might have to do morally questionable things to save the other, realizing that they aren't really the person that they used to be or something. I would love that within the context of, xenomorphs and the company, but focusing on the characters, because I think that's when we continue to talk about the films. That's when we become emotionally invested. And it doesn't have to be the hero and, oh, they survive at the end and they did great. It could be the horror, could be what it does to their relationship and what it does to like subsequent relationships as well. And I think, focusing on the emotional horror and the impact that being up against not just the creatures, but what the company is willing to do and willing to sacrifice at the cost of humanity, and how that affects your own humanity, I think could be a really cool story in there. Um, I don't know, take it in a direction that doesn't have to add 20 different plot points and AI, and that I think keeping it simpler can make it really great.
I think I love what you said. The emotional terror. Is that what you said, Andy? Yes. So emotional
Yes.
terror, and that's what I was trying to get at when I was initially talking about where I'd like to see, because I agree. I think it was Holden said something in the chat about how can it be like Romulus too without at least some of the characters from Romulus, right? So I was that was kind of what I was trying to get at with Rain. I would love to see her haunted by what happened and what she had to do and what she lost on Romulus. Maybe she's got PTSD and she cannot deal. She can't live and function in society. Maybe she makes it to Ivaga and she's a pariah because of what happened to her. And the only person who can stand her is Andy. And he's just kind of like the one that has to interface with whatever people that they meet on that planet. Like, it would be so cool to see actual fallout from the horrors of these things that happen to these people in the context, like you said, of a world wherein xenomorphs exist and wherein the company Weyland-Yutani exists, who still, by the way, have control over Rain's life. As we know, she was forcibly made to continue her work contract. That's an asset I don't think Weyland-Yutani is going to let go of that easily. So maybe she's being hunted, and maybe Andy is maybe the key of how to find her. I don't know. But I want to see something different, and I want to see it with those two. That's it.
Kind of building off what you were just saying, Micah, I love the idea that all of the events of Romulus were being monitored by Weyland-Yutani, like just from jump. Because I've always had this little theory. There's this one very particular, it's weirdly particular shot of a dude when the Corbellin is taking off for the first time. There's a dude smoking a cigarette watching the ship, and it's just it could just be a dude smoking a cigarette watching the ship, like that kind of thing happens at, like, I worked at FedEx at an airport. You just sit there and watch the planes take off sometimes, or it could be somebody who's monitoring them. And there were hella cameras on that station, as we saw. The station was capable of transmitting, which we saw. So it would be really cool if the company is aware of everything that happened and that they're still domineering over Rain and Andy. There's still that heavy presence, and that they didn't just get away, scot-free. Because the ending, you sort of do forget about Weyland-Yutani just a little bit by the end of Romulus. You're so focused on all the crazy shit that just happened with the offspring and everything. So I think that would definitely be something interesting.
One thing I've been struggling a little bit with thinking about this is, do I want to see a character story continue, or do I want to see a story that's more on like more the mystery and body horror? I mean, ideally it's both, but it's like I kind of feel like that's a little bit hard with Rain and Andy's direction. I think I was talking about in the chat with you guys a little bit of having someone who's captured by a company, or even could be by David, who they have a good way to extract a chest burster out of somebody, and they keep using that same person over and over again, and they were just ripping that, and like what that could do to them, like on their insides. Do they start like growing something else? Do they bring like egg morphing back? That would be cool. And almost just have just like a slow burn body horror, and it's just like that person dealing with all of that, and it's just like traumatic, almost like a Captain Keyes from Halo, as he's being like brought into the flood, and just like he's conscious, he can't move, but it's just all happening around them and stuff like that. And to your point, Jamie, of not doing that to another female character, like Shaw, honestly, if they had a movie where that showed Shaw, like that would be terrifying. If you had all of Shaw's journey in between Prometheus and Covenant, and like that was like the first 30 minutes, like that would be terribly and disgusting. Which, I mean, part of the best things of Romulus for me was the offspring. Like I like was like, oh, the first time I saw the thing come out of K, I don't even like the baby almost of the offspring come out, I was disgusted, and it was awesome, and I loved that so much. So, I mean, that was be some things I would love to see for a sequel.
The the films, the possibility is there's so much possibility, which is what I love about when we're thinking about the way forward, especially in the films. I think the series, it's another discussion in terms of where Alien Earth goes in season 2, which I'm sure we'll cover at some point. But there is so much possibility with these films, and I really hope, to your point, Mario, I think they can do both. They can do body horror and they can do character. They should do both. If they only do one and not the other, it's not going to work. And in terms of emotional horror or emotional terror, what you were talking about, Andy, and then also Micah, I think about, again, we talked about this in our last episode, I think a little bit, but when Ripley is sitting in the chair in Alien and she sees this, what's on the screen, and she's mortified. You can feel how she's feeling. She understands in that moment that she means nothing. Her life means nothing. And then after the events of Alien and Aliens, we see her wake up in the middle of the night, sweating, screaming, like it's palpable. You can feel her terror. You can feel her horror. And to me, those character moments have really been absent in the Alien series since probably Alien 3. And then, of course, in Alien 3, there's also that devastation where Clemens says to her, "Oh, they didn't survive." And you see Ripley like, what? What? And then it gets worse because she goes to the autopsy room and they're tearing up Newt and she's devastated. That is horror. To see her, for all intents and purposes, adopted daughter being torn apart. That's some of the most horrific things in Alien. Also because we as an audience are also emotionally invested in her. That's what I want to see in an Alien film. Like, tear me up, like, but do it in a way that the emotional stakes are like way up here, you know. And I'm always excited about something new, but I also want whatever is going to be next for Alien Romulus, for that script to not have 10,000 holes in it like the script for Romulus did in some ways. Like, follow through with that. Make this thing as airtight as Aliens without actually being Aliens. But Aliens, again, as much shit as we give James Cameron about various things, he got the character of Ripley so right. He upped the stakes for her. She had this emotional development that stands alone in not just in sequels but in sci-fi, and I think we all can agree there's no film like it. There's no character of Ripley like the character of Ripley in Aliens. She just becomes the archetype. I think we've talked about this in the years that we've been doing the show. Ripley becomes Ripley in Aliens, and I think the same could happen for Rain. Rain could become the archetype that isn't Ripley but a different form in Romulus 2, if they're smart enough, if the studio is really, really paying attention. And again, I always bring it back to this idea that the irony here of Alien and its roots in the big company and like the fucking company, and here we are with this big company that owns this IP, always sort of fucking it over a little bit, the way that Weyland-Yutani has always fucked over some of its, employees. And I really, really hope this is the time for them to deepen the mystery, deepen the characters, and create something that we haven't seen before. But also, I want to double down on that body horror. I want to see them do some incredible things. And I remember, I don't know what everyone else's first experience, but I remember when I was a teenager and seeing Alien and then going and looking at Guy Giger's books and then thinking, what the fuck is this? And being horrified. That's what I want in an Alien film.
I remember I forgot about the egg morphing deleted scene in the first one, and when I got onto like YouTube content, I guess like 8, 7, 9 years ago, whenever it was, before Perfect Organism, and I heard about it. I remember seeing a video. It was actually Alien Theory, shout out, like Alien Theory rules, but it was on egg morphing, and it brought me back to that unsettling existential horror that I was like, this is absolutely terrifying, of feeling like you're being disintegrated slowly, and turned into something. And I understand the pacing, why it wasn't in the film, whatever, but I think that kind of fear and terror, or terror, not even fear, needs to come back, because I did feel that the only time I felt something really unsettling in recent times from film was actually in a movie that was kind of humorous, Nope, when the people are getting gestated and they realize they are stuck in a digestive tract for hours screaming and you can't do anything. Like you're stuck. And you're not even being egg morphs. You're just stuck. So like that is probably one of the scariest things I've ever thought of or seen in modern times that I could think of. Besides watching Threads, which is a very uplifting movie about a nuclear bomb going off in the UK. So go watch. Good luck with that if you watch it. But like besides that though, yeah, that terror, speaking back to Mario, and Jamie, you were saying about it, I do want to feel unsettled again, and I think Annihilation hits on that a bit, but I think in totally different ways. So I think it's plausible. It's just who do we get to do it correctly, and who allows it now, if you will.
And I think to me, the number one challenge of a sequel to Romulus is to keep the budget small as shit and be really innovative within that budget, because a beautiful thing about Romulus that I've always adored about it is they shot it for $80 million and that you see every penny on that screen. I mean, everything is beautiful. The artists who worked on it are so proud of their time on that film. They have become very good friends of ours over the years. And a lot of that is because they are just huge Alien fans who got this dream job with a director who cultivated that and gave them all of this wonderful leeway to innovate and try new things. I mean, Fede sounds like such a dream to work for, like a dream to work for. And that's pretty rare in Hollywood, especially among successful directors. And Fede at this point, I think, would be considered a successful director, you know? Um, he sounds like he really ran the exact kind of platform that makes for good content of any kind, but especially an alien film, because it's such a passion project for people. I think Cameron, is such an amazing person, I think, in so many ways, and such an interesting study in how sometimes the antithesis of things almost like proves the thesis of things. And by that, I mean, like, so Cameron he was 32, right, when he made Aliens, had barely any actual experience. And he, made this film that like shouldn't have worked because it was played very fast and loose with the mythology of Alien, which was pretty sacrosanct. I mean, the Alien was already considered a modern classic when Aliens was being made. And Cameron was like, nah, fuck it. Let's just try this out. And it was like, it was so brilliant. I mean, Cameron designed the Queen. Like, that's his artwork that made that creature with Stan Winston. That's fucking amazing. You know what I mean? That the director of the film came up with a creature that was in some ways just as iconic as Giger's creation is. That's pretty amazing. I mean, Cameron was such the right person for that job. And I think because he's so unbelievably prodigiously talented at so many different things, I think he uniquely was able to pull off something that really honestly just should not have worked. I mean, if Aliens had not been the masterpiece that it is, it would be like my least favorite movie. I really mean that. Like, I think because it, as we said recently, demystifies things so much. I should hate it, and yet it's like maybe my favorite movie of all time, although usually Alien is in front of it, and Alien 3 sometimes, because it's just such a fantastic film. So I think we should kind of avoid doing that, because I don't think James Cameron is that James Cameron anymore, and I don't think anybody else is that James Cameron anymore. So like, let's just not make everything bigger, make everything louder, make everything crazier. Let's like keep the budget small, focus on these characters that we now finally have really an attachment to. Give us, I love all the body horror ideas that have been coming up both here and in the chat. Give us like small stakes, so it's not like if this ship crash lands on the wrong planet, the entire known universe is at risk. Like, make it one family is at risk. Make it like this one colony, this one little outpost on the way to Ivaga that they have to stop at to refuel. It becomes overrun because of something on the ship, or because K reanimates and releases spores, or because the black goo is mutated. Like, there's all, I mean, the horror stuff is fine. Like that, it doesn't take a ton of imagination to make that work. We have very imaginative people coming up with amazing ideas in our chat right now. We have amazing people in the YouTube chat doing the same thing. We can make it scary. That's not the problem. The problem is making it compelling. And I think if you can get that, all the scary stuff's just icing on the cake.
So I just have a couple of quick thoughts and then a question for y'all. I love the idea of centralizing body horror in Alien again. I think that's sort of where the main roots of it are. Um, and I think there's a couple of directors who could do a really great job with that. I think the first person I think of is Coralie Farjat, I
Oh, that'd
think,
be a disturbing movie.
who did The Substance. Yeah. She's got a lot of really great like high concept ideas, and she did the whole spin with the evil corporation that's behind The Substance. Um, and that movie was done for a relatively small budget, I think 17 or 18 million dollars. And she did a lot with that. There's so many great special effects in that. There's a lot of great character and story beats in that. I also think of Lee Cronin, who did Evil Dead Rise, which I quite enjoyed. That movie scared the fuck out of me. Again, some great body horror moments, some great cabin fever moments that are very claustrophobic, very oppressive, like hallways, very tight camera shots. Um, that I just thought would fit Alien very well, especially if I would like for Alien to go back to space and spaceships. Um, those those tight angles, those claustrophobic moments are just so synonymous with what Alien is for me. I would just really see it. I would really love to see it run back in that direction as opposed to um going towards like Rain and Andy landing on a planet or something like that. I think we're getting enough of that with Alien Earth right now, which I love Alien Earth so much, but I just I feel like I'm tired of being on the ground with Alien. I love the moments that are in space the most. So it would be cool to go back to that, the environments um that are sort of at the root of the original movie, and very much of the sequel Aliens as well.
What was your question, Holden? Said
Oh
you had
yeah,
a
so
question for.
yeah, so my question is, who are some directors that y'all would love to see potentially take care of this sequel?
Brandon Cronenberg, who did Possessor and the Infinity Pool, I believe.
I always got to go in for my man, Alex Garland. I just think he's brilliant.
Hmm.
I was gonna second that, especially if it has like an ex machina feel, like really intimate. That to me was like horrifying.
What if,
So
what
if
if it's
it,
Alex Garland just no, sorry, Alex Garland directing Rain and Andy just on the ship with just Kay's reanimated corpse, and that's it. They
yeah,
never leave that ship, but it's like Ex Machina, like they're trapped in that one environment.
yes, I loved that movie because it was so claustrophobic and not just the space, but the number of people in it. Like there was no, it was just so intimate, scary. I would love something like that. Yeah, and I think he would be the one to do it. I agree with you.
Well, I was gonna say Alex Garland too, because I just love how innovative he is in his writing. And I think if if we could somehow keep Fede maybe creatively with writing, that would be kind of cool. Um, I don't know. For directors, I always hesitate to commit to something besides him when it comes to the Alien, because I just want to see an Alien film directed by Alex Garland. I think that would be cool. But maybe someone like um I mean, I think Perry, you might have mentioned Ari Aster or something. That might be kind of interesting
Yeah.
because I feel like it would be a very bold choice, and a director who would be unafraid to add that shock value that we might be looking for with the body horror. But again, I don't know. I don't know if there's a right answer for me in particular about throwing out directors.
Yeah, I was just gonna add to, like, I think Robert Edgers would be great. I mean, the feelings and the atmosphere of like Nosferatu were great, but I know he's very much more not like specifically a space movie type of person. Um, but I think he could bring a really cool different view to Alien. And then just thinking through like some of the films of the past year, I think like Osgood Perkins could be a cool director. And I'm like purposefully not really I'm trying to think of like some niche people that they would bring in, because again, I just don't know if the studio will like pay to bring in, it's going to be like another Fede Alvarez, and I mean that in the best way possible as far as like the level of director that I feel like they will bring in. I don't know, that's just me, but it would be cool to see someone that has some like really good work in their resume, that we all know of, and that's like really scary. Like Holden, I love your idea of getting the Substance say her name again.
Coraline Farjat, I think. I
Yes,
think it looks French, so I'm reading it with a French accent.
yeah, I mean that would be amazing. That I think that would be a really cool like direction for them to go if they got her to do it. That'd be really cool. So we'll see.
Ryan Coogler, I think
Oh,
he knows slow burn. I mean, Sinners is a testament to character development, and I feel
sure.
like Alien needs character development more than it needs anything else. The set pieces, we know all that's going to be great, aside from the alien, as long as they don't make it look like an actual stapler like it was in Romulus. I think Alien really needs characters. It needs some people who know how to write and direct characters, and it's sorely missing.
What about somebody like Julia Ducournau who did Titan? And speaking of French female directors, that'd be great.
Mm.
Psychological body horror. I bet that'd be really cool. I would love to see a female director. I'm just going to say that I think that'd be a really nice change, considering that we have, movie after movie after movie after television series that are centering on female characters, all
Yeah.
directed by men. I think that'd probably be a helpful change for the franchise.
Who did Under the Skin?
Ooh.
Is
Oh,
that
that was
Oh,
That was
Jonathan
Jonathan
Glazer.
Glazer,
Glazer,
yeah,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
Michael
Oh, he'd
Levi,
be
yeah.
great.
Talk
Ah,
about unsettling.
Yeah.
that would be
That
amazing. Amazing.
yeah.
So it's funny every single time Jamie mentions his ideas for scores for the movies, I just hear Under the Skin in my head, and I'm like, I can't always just think about that, because that is like when we talk about
It's
unsettling things,
incredible.
that's like as unsettling as movies get, other
Yeah.
than maybe Threads,
And
the social
annihilation.
media platform, in Annihilation.
Mm.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
go out. Oh, sorry.
No, go for it, Kyle.
I'm gonna go out on a whim and say Andrei Tarkovsky. I'm going to figure out a way for him to be present with us again. But no, I mean I would love to see like if he's Stalker is like such a slow burn, but I always imagine like if Tarkovsky did an alien film, what that would look like. Like it would, like I just like I can't wrap my head around that without like wishing he were alive to do something like that. Like if he did Alien 3, imagine like and I like Fincher's like it is he did an incredible job with what he had to deal with, but the when I think of a modern person that might fall into that, at least in some of the ideas, I don't think he's as complex as he is. And it's everyone mentioned already, so I'm surprised. I would love Alex Garland as well. I mean, I think Annihilation, I'm like, this is some of the smartest science fiction I've seen in a minute, where I don't know what I'm dealing with. I know it's echoing Lovecraft a little bit in some ways, but like the atmosphere, the way in which it's bright sometimes in that movie. It's still unsettling. It doesn't have to be always dark, even though I know Alien is built upon that. Like, don't get me wrong, I get it. But that, and even having a unique monster,
The
where
bear.
the bear, like where it's
No.
echoing the person's voice. It's recreating it because it's copying the DNA. Like, give us a xenomorph that's, doing something that echoes something like that. I always think of like, how do you make a xenomorph ineffable? How do you make it what it was like when it was first seen? I don't know if that's possible at this point without it, being what we know that what pop culture wants, you know, at least like the Marvelization of these things, you know. But like I mean I think the Offspring comes close to that, but I don't know. I just think that Annihilation hits on these notes very well, and this podcast obviously has talked about this nonstop about this film, so I'm, you know, preaching to the choir, but I do think if we look at some of the ideas, he would be the perfect, you know, option with modern times. But I also think everyone else who's mentioned, you know, especially the director of why with Demi Moore, you just said it, I can't remember it. The Substance.
Farage. Hold
Yes,
it to get
thank
5
you.
chances to pronounce this name.
Right, yeah. Blame my terrible working memory. But yeah, like I do think she would be an incredible option for this as well because it's been just dudes doing it. Like I do think, you know, there should be a female director. And I know you know the name. I'm terrible with names tonight, Patrick. You know the director, one of the directors, I think she was Icelandic for Alien
Oh
Earth.
yeah, Olga. She'd be awesome. Oh,
She would be
Ula,
incredible.
not Olga.
Yes, I wanted
Ula.
to say her too.
Ula
I thought
Hausdaughter. Yeah.
I thought she
Yeah.
was yeah. And I thought those were the best some of the best character development episodes on Alien Earth where I like
Yes.
remember these episodes, you know. I don't hate Alien Earth. It's fine. No, you know, but like but I'm not gonna go into it. But like she would be an awesome option.
She would be great. Yeah, and when we got to talk with her too, she just kept talking about characters over and over and over again. And I just think, yeah,
Yeah, that's what I was
that's
saying. You know,
that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
want to read some comments from the chat too, if that's all right, really quick, because we have a lot of suggestions coming up. Some good, some maybe worse. But let's go through a couple. So Amoeba Jelly says Sigourney Weaver should get a chance to direct one. I would
Ooh.
love
I
to
was
see
gonna
her try
say
that.
that.
Oh
How
my
cool would that
God.
be, right?
Interesting.
How
So
have we not
cool.
thought of that?
Yeah, get a little bit of a homecoming,
But-
right?
Okay.
Would Ripley be in
That's
it
it.
somehow? I don't know. I would like to see her direct without the pressure of having to also be Ripley.
Yeah. I mean, what if she
That would be interesting.
what if she directed the, you know, the script that Walter Hill was working on?
Ooh.
Damn.
Has
Not as a
Sigourney
Romulus
directed
sequel.
anything? I'm
I don't think
ignorant
so.
to that.
No,
Not that
I
I-
think
not
she
that I know
directed
of.
a couple episodes of that French heist show that Louis Leterrier was a showrunner of. Oh my God, what's his name? The star of it is an African American on Netflix.
Yeah, it was that like 6 years ago. It's called
No,
like
but then
Bonk.
Yeah, it's bonk.
Something like that. What's it called?
no, I think it's one word, but I think
It's one
the
word,
guy's
it's
la-
bonk.
it's the guy's
Bonk.
last name or first name or
It's
something.
definitely it's Bonk.
It's
Um,
bonk.
And I think she directed a couple of episodes of that second season, but I'm not positive. I don't know if that actually came to fruition, but that was what was going to happen. She'd be an interesting director, but if it's her first feature, I'm not so sure.
Pretty high stakes for a first feature, but hey, I mean, I'd love to see what she would at least have to do with the story or something. I mean, it'd be great to bring her back formally, I think. Anyway, let's go through a couple more suggestions. Andre Overdahl, that'd be cool. Damien Rudna, this is somebody that's come up quite a few times with Jamie and I as somebody that we think would be really cool. It actually was rumored somewhat for a little while to be the person actually attached to it. You know, Damien Rudna, of course, did Terrified as well, and not Terrifier, Terrified, as well as When Evil Lurks, which I think is just a masterpiece in contemporary
Oh,
horror.
yes.
That'd
That
be
was
very cool.
super good.
Oh, man.
Alex Garland is definitely coming up more than anybody else. Ari Aster has come up quite a few times. Panos Cosmatos is getting mentioned. That could be a very different type of movie.
Yes, I love that. Oh man, that's
Yeah.
a great suggestion.
We could have a recreation of the All Dogs Go to Heaven hell scene. We could have Fievel
Ugh.
getting mutated in American
Nope.
Tail 3. We have Sinners, but vampires being replaced with aliens. The chat goes a little bit off the rails for a bit.
Hey,
but
hey, hey,
I
don't
do
forget,
think-
Sam Raimi was suggested
Sam
as
Raimi was
well.
also up
Let's
there, yeah.
do it. He would
Uh,
be a savage with it.
Oh, my God.
I think
Yeah.
it's just exciting because this is one of the few intellectual properties out there where I do think basically anybody would want to give it a shot as long as they're okay playing within the rules of like an established franchise. But I do think last thing I'll say is there is a precedent for younger directors doing these, and I think having sometimes better results. I think young Ridley did a lot better than old Ridley did, and I say that as a Covenant lover. I think it would be nice to get new younger talent, and that's why I think somebody like Ugla Haugstadter I think would be amazing, because she's like an up and coming director who has had some big work that's gone very well, but she hasn't really had a big breakthrough yet. And how cool would it be for Alien to help make the career of a young female director who's not American or British or any of these things we've seen, who has a different perspective, growing up in a very different environment with different, norms and things and storytelling customs. And I think she can infuse it with some really cool stuff. I got to say, for me, if it's not Garland, I'd love to see Hawkstarter do it.
What?
I also go ahead.
Oh, I was about to say, how do you guys feel about Dan Trachtenberg doing one? I haven't really seen any horror things from him, but I mean, I've really loved where the Predator franchise has gone. It's definitely not the same as Alien, and it's a totally different vibe to it, especially with me wanting a more darker movie. I haven't seen that from him, but I would be interested on his take because I do like his world building that he's done so far. And all you guys' choices, you guys know way more directors than I do. I just watch Alien and build things. So you guys rattled off some names I had no idea about.
I'd say
I'll
if
still
it.
throw. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Mario, great point. I would just say if it was more a Prey version of what he's going for, just because I think that had more. It was more Trachtenberg like trying to make a statement with an IP that he wanted to further a story along that connected with something from the older Predator films, but really made it into like a solid story that wasn't just like an 80s action flick type thing. And I thought really even gave the Predator some um just some deeper character elements that made you want to see more of that and was like very intriguing. Right. So anyway, that's all I was gonna add. If it was like his Prey version of Alien Romulus 2 or whatever, I think that could be really cool, and maybe he would have some great ideas to bring some horror and centralize that body horror into it. All right, Jamie.
I'm just
All
gonna throw
right,
my
no,
hat.
just wait, just I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I'm just gonna also suggest the idea that Fede do it still. I mean, I don't know. We don't even know what's really happening, and we don't know what went on behind the scenes. I think it's fairly clear. We had a little bit of speculation, I think, a few months ago that clearly Fede was going to direct Romulus 2. Steve Asbell, the president of 20th Century Studios, went on record in an interview saying we're working on our deal with Fede right now. Fede was talking about it, and then there was some type of fallout. And I would hope, against hope, that maybe they're trying to resurrect that deal with him and that they're going to give him more creative freedom. And I would suggest, and I think all of us maybe agree on this, that perhaps the reason why he backed away is like, I'm either going to make a film that I want to make without Ridley Scott, or if this is going to be the same thing and I have to report to this guy, then I don't want to do it anymore. And maybe 20th Century / Disney can be like, okay, we're going to let you do this. We're going to give you the same type of freedom that Dan Trachtenberg has. And I throw my hat in the ring for him too. I don't know. He's a bit of an unknown in terms of if he can do horror, if he can do dark. And to your point, Perry, I think Prey is the much better vehicle, or his instincts for Prey would serve him for Alien, absolutely. But I still think Fede could make an amazing sequel to Romulus. I just really think that him and the studio needs other people to read that script and ask hard questions about, does this work? Does this make sense? Where is this going? So that we don't have a lot of those sort of like open-ended, like, why is this happening here? This doesn't make sense. Why are they going here without all that kind of thing? Because I think the bones of Romulus, the bones of the script are great. And I even think it would be interesting I know it would be more of a colony thing. Let's just say Rain and Andy end up back on Jackson Star. Say they're in cryo forever and they think, here, we've arrived, and they wake up and they're back on Jackson Star. The company have brought them back. And something happens on that colony. That would be an interesting story to me, but we'll see.
How would you like? As far as the alien being in the future movies, how much of the alien would you guys want to see? I'm kind of at a point where I would like to see a lot less of the alien itself. Um, Especially rewatching Romulus Saturday, I had a bit of a problem with the alien kind of running. Like the scene with the acid floating in the air, that was cool, but watching like 10 aliens just get blasted by someone who really never shot a gun before was kind of like the less I see of the alien, I find the more that I love it. Ex like Kyle had said, growing up was not afraid of the alien at all. I was the same way, except playing video games, playing Rogue Incursion. I'm trying to read on the control panel the messages, and it's not like the game's paused. I know they're there. I don't see any, and I hear something, and I'm trying to like back out. I'm trying to back out because I need to grab my gun, and it's terrifying because I'm just trying to read to get the story, and I know it's there. The same thing with isolation. The alien scares the living shit out of me, and I don't even see it. I just know that it's there.
There was a great like supercut I just saw on Reddit where somebody put together like 8 examples of the alien moving in different movies as a way. I think they were trying to say that it looks better when it's CG, when it's in motion. And I actually really disagree with that because I think like Aliens nails it. I think that the creatures move extremely well in Aliens. And the other one that everybody in the comments was agreeing with you on is Alien Earth when it was in motion, but you couldn't see like its feet and hands, which were very human, looked really good. Like the scenes where it's running down the hall. I think that actually looks really solid. But the problem with Alien Earth's, there's a lot of problems with its depiction, in my opinion, visually of the creature. But you know, it's its own thing. It's really bright like all this like it's always very visible, and so what happens with that is like when things don't quite aesthetically work for you, like you're kind of kept forced to confront them. Romulus does the same thing where Romulus like the creatures look gorgeous, but they're just so, I mean, it just like it's like playing with action figures, right? I think the only way to make the creature scary again is to make it unknowable and make it dark, and to use Kyle's words, to make it ineffable, like make it something that, you know, is not, it's not like a literal representation again. I mean, like, you know, something about Annihilation that I love. If you watch the behind the scenes of that bear scene that we always talk about, it looks stupid. I mean, it looks dumb. It is not even a puppet. It's just a big block of a bear on being carried around like the front of a pretend horse, you know, between like this person's legs. And then in post they, you know, animate it and they make it look not like that, but the actors are just acting against what really on its face is kind of goofy, like it's just a deformed bear. But what happens is when you
I
see
hate it.
something, when you see something that's like genuinely scary, your mind plays tricks on you, right? Like we don't see that this bear looks a little dopey, not just because of the CG enhancement, but because it's very dark. I mean, we just see like the contours of a skull superimposed into its face, and we see the nostril flare. We see just enough to just let our imaginations go crazy. And if you want to know how to make something scary again, that's like all you have to do. Our imagination is always better than anything you could ever show us. Giger is, I think, almost the exception to that because he painted his actual imagination. And that's why I think his artwork is uniquely terrifying because it feels like somebody painted the thing we were actually afraid of, that you can't, that nobody else has ever successfully represented. Just do that again. It's crazy to me because it seems so obvious, right? It seems so easy. Like we all venerate Giger so much because what he did was perfect. It was just exactly what we needed. And yet every time a new thing comes along, they're like, well, how can we make this thing that we all already agreed was perfect better? I'm like, what? Just don't do that. Just like keep it in the darkness and give us the shapes that we love and like let us get scared again, you know?
I think they need to look at
It's
trans. No, Perry, go for it.
no, it's real quick. It's like Jaws, right? How many shark movies have been made after Jaws?
More
A
than two.
lot. Yes, more than two. And I would say none of them are as scary as like the original Jaws that fucking came out in the 70s, right? And so it's just like, and what was Spielberg's big thing? Because the puppet sucked at mechanically working for them, they barely showed it. And what we see, to your point, Patrick, was just so horrifying because you had to imagine like the shark eating these people or chomping their legs off or what have you, right? And just like scarred me for life as a kid. And it's just like why Spiel like there's a clear cut instructions on doing that, and it was made so long ago, and it's just like not like repeat that, but use that equation, right, for like creating some horror and not showing us everything. Um, yeah, I just wanted to call that out.
Yeah, I just want to say really quickly too, like just to expound on that, maybe we don't need like 10, 20 Xenos. Maybe we just need one, you know? One like isolation, one like alien, one that has a lot of power and that it feels unbeatable, you know? Because when we're Amanda Ripley in isolation, that alien also, Patrick and I played it. We were so scared we had to stop playing for a while because it was so scary and all powerful. And I would love to have them go back to the one Xeno just stalking and just like popping up and scaring us. And that's what I would love to see. Not see it. We don't need to see it. We know what it looks like. We need a bit of the shiny black. We know that it's there. We need a bit of the drool coming down from the ceiling. Oh, there it is. Like that's terrifying. That's all I need.
Yes, Micah, what you're saying, like if Romulus had just stuck to the only XX121 being the scorched one that comes from the cocoon and everything, if Romulus had just stuck to it being that one creature that stalks them throughout the rest of the film, it would have maintained that the great haunted house vibe that they cultivated in the first half of that movie. Like the atmosphere of the Romulus station is so great. It's so much like Isolation. If it had just been that one Xeno hunting them throughout the rest of that movie, it would have been so much better. And I think that's something that's really important if you're going to be featuring an XX121. That punch needs to be pulled. That needs to be the ultimate creature to defeat. That needs to be the perfect organism, the deadliest creature in the universe. That's what that is. And that's something that needs to be maintained throughout future films and future seasons of TV shows.
It's a hell of a name for a podcast. We got to wrap. I think, Jamie, you got one more thing to say?
Well, Kyle had something to say, and
Yeah.
you were cut off earlier.
Yeah, we
but
could
I
do
had
some
one more
final
thing.
comments.
Oh, it was very passing. It was about Geiger. I feel like obviously we're always using Geiger as a reference, but like we want to look at like other dark art that's non-scientific at all, like science fiction-y or biomechanical, if that's the right word. Um, like some of Francis Bacon's work is terrifying and haunting. If you've like, I remember the first time I came across him at the Met, I walked by, I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, and it was like it kind of looked like a xenomorph. Actually, it was like one of the ones that had this like amorphous face with that was really, screaming, and but it looked like a creature. So I'm like, and it wasn't the normal like screaming faces ones where we see the human form. So I'm like, there are a lot of dark artists that like that could be drawn from that still pays respect to Geiger that is then morphed into something else to kind of amplify this kind of terror or horror, I guess, in seeing this that we're not seeing, I think, and the same xenomorph that's just, changed in different colors of shades in the last few films. But all right, yeah, that was it.
Last thing I want to say is I think what's more important, or the most important, even though all of these things that we're saying are valid, like put this thing back in the dark, make it scary, we need someone who actually believes that it's scary and can't be scary. We've had Covenant, we've had Romulus, and we've had Alien Earth with people who aren't fully on board with that creature being scary anymore. And it comes off that way to us, even though there were moments in Covenant that Patrick and I have discussed where the thing is fucking scary when it's on top of the lander. But yeah, if the next director doesn't think the alien's that scary, I mean, they're gonna sink this franchise. And I think it was the most evident in Alien Earth, honestly, by the end of it, where it was just sort of this strange actual puppet that didn't have any menace to it at all. And this thing is scary. It's frightening, and we all every day see versions of it that are terrifying. And this is a horse that I will beat until it's until we see someone make a scary alien again. Honestly,
You keep beating
You're
that
gonna
horse.
beat a horse.
I'm gonna beat the horse to death. And
Oh
then
my
again.
It's animal
And then again.
cruelty, man.
You heard it here, folks. I want to read the producers' names quick. I have one more quick thing just to throw in there. Micah, when you're talking about making like an object or one particular thing really scary again, I keep thinking about Damien McCarthy. That's one other name I want to throw out there, who of course did Caveat, Oddity, and the upcoming Hokum starring Adam Scott. Those are movies made on shoestring budgets that are really scary. And those are movies where there's barely anybody in them, very strong character work. And he's a young director. He's Irish, so that's like, kind of underrepresented, I think, in the franchise, in terms of where people are from. Could be a really cool fit. If you haven't seen those movies, especially
I was gonna say,
Caveat.
definitely watch those. Those are so good.
Yeah, and if you love the Alien series, you'll love those movies, even though they're not science fiction. Anyway, let's as we close here, just do a quick shout out to our producers. We've got Darren Gold, Murray Kucherawi, Jonas Holmsten, Dave Turner, Gene McDonald, Perry Chicos, Matthew Bruff. It is Bruff, not Bro. I now know this. Matthew Bruff, Carl McLean, Joseph Rosner. Deal with it. Blood Hut. Vincent Harris, Steve Patterson, G. Latori Yates, Zarnold Quigley, Ross Yost, Weed, Sean Rosato, Jeff DeLoff, Zeno Nick, Eric Boopvane Stevens, Carl Hingst, Chris B., Jeremiah White, Gary Smith, Weyland-Yutani, Distinguished Engineer, Justin Baker, Brazen God, Sky Errand, and Jordan. Thank you so much. We love you guys. We're having a lot of fun talking to you on like 9 different platforms at the same time. It's always a blast. And thank you everybody who's in the chat tonight. This was the liveliest chat we've had since Alien Earth was on. It is just a joy. Thank you.
Thanks so much, guys.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Yes, thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you
You
guys.
guys are the best.
Thank you.
And to those who are listening, like towards the end here, if you want to join us on Patreon as a producer, that tier is always available. We have so much happening, which as we roll up to Alien Day 2026, which always feels like 2 weeks after January. Like I was talking with Patrick about this the other day. It always feels really, really quickly when it comes around. But we have, there's plenty of space available, and we'd love to see you.
Thanks, everybody.
It can't come yet. We have to do the score.